Hi everyone, it's Jackie at Spare Room Studio, and today I'm going to colour out of this lovely little book, Story of Precious Cats. I haven't done a lot of pages in this book, so I'm still experimenting with what works in it and what doesn't. And today I thought that I would use some watercolours out of a palette, and this particular set is a Sakura Koi watercolour pocket filled sketchbox. It has 24 colours in there. It says 24 half pans. So I have wet all of those using a pipette. I've just dropped some colour into there and wet them ready. So, oops, I'm making a mess already. The mixing palette comes out there and you've got, that's all the colours there. Little half pans. I have got some colour already in one of these little palettes that I was using earlier, so that's off to the side as well. And I also have an old plate, ceramic plate for mixing with a water brush. And I've also got my Koi colouring brush pens all over the table here. And I'm going to use these as well. Now, I will say at the beginning, for full transparency, Sakura did send me a set of 12 Koi colouring brush pens and the lovely set of watercolours here. That's the box that they come in. They were sent to me by Sakura as part of their Sakura Star of the Month program. So they were gifted to me by Sakura, and after using them, I liked them so much that I actually went and bought myself all of these little curated colour sets. So I've got 6 of these. They are a set of 6 colours in each set. There's various ones. And also I had this set that I had hardly used, and I won this in a giveaway last year, I think it was, on Instagram from another company. So I've got quite a few Sakura Koi colouring brush pens, although some of my sets have the colours that actually do come in this 12 basic colour set. This one does come with yellow, orange, pale orange, brown, red, pink, purple, sky blue, yellow, green, green, blue and black. And some of my other little curated sets do have similar or the same colours, I should say. So just try and get comfortable here without putting my arm in paint, because I have already done that. So the page that I'm thinking of colouring is this one, the Queen of Hearts. And I just felt like colouring something fun and whimsical today. I will talk about, this is going to be a colour and chat style video, and I will talk about what's been happening a little bit. So let's just put those to the side there to start with, because I'm thinking I'd like to do a washy background here. And instead of doing it as a necessarily colouring in each of those diamonds, I'm going to do a bit of a watercolour wash of various colours, and we'll see how that ends up. And I've got some yellows in this little palette from earlier, something else that I was doing that didn't turn out for a video. But I'm going to use those colours mixed with a few others. And we'll see how that turns out. I've got a pot of water off to the side. If you see me reaching off to the side, sorry, I still have a frog in my throat. If you see me reaching off to the side, I'm washing off my brush in a water pot. One thing you do need to be aware of when you're working this way, that using pigments out of a tube or a pan, the paint is a lot more concentrated and it takes longer to wash it out of your brush, or there may indeed be some actual undiluted paint in your brush, And if you then go and use that to mix other things, you're going to be disappointed. You'll end up with muddy colours. So it's definitely taking longer to clean my brush with these pigmented watercolour pans versus what I use with the brush pens when you're using it on a plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm hoping that, because I've dampened the paper and then I'm using this quite washy, I'm hoping that the colours are going to blend on the paper. That's the plan. I'm not really very well set up for working with watercolours and palettes and so on in this way, and that's why generally I do stick to using the marker pens over loose watercolours at this stage, because I just am really limited in my space and what I can do working wise. So and I've got a bit of green here now, and I'm going to hopefully get that to blend in. Now obviously I'm not going to showcase these paints at their very best because I'm working in a colouring book. These paints will work best obviously on watercolour paper, and working into a colouring book on normal paper isn't necessarily going to showcase to you the absolute best qualities of this product if you plan to paint with them, you know, create some original artwork or print your colouring book pages off onto watercolour paper and paint with watercolour. Obviously you're going to have a much different result than what I'm going to have here in a colouring book. So that is very wet there. And what I might have to do is blot some of that off with paper towel eventually. But at this point I just want to try a few things first, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but let's see what happens and we'll go from there. So what I'm doing is working very, very wet, and I dampened the paper first. And now I'm just going to move that around a little bit on the page. And that is extremely wet. Now what's happening is it's pooling at this area where the paper is no longer damp, where I did not wet the paper to start with. The colour is now all pooling there. And I'm going to see what that dries like. Very much experimental, but we'll see. If I feel like that's sitting there for too long, I may have to blot some off with paper towel, but I hope not to. We'll see. It's very, very wet. Okay, so now my brush has got a lot of green in it. I have to make sure that I get rid of all of this green back out of here. And it's in my brush itself because I use the concentrated paint out of the little paint pan there. So I've got to make sure that is dry and clean. And I've run out of water, so what I'm going to do is take the tip off of another one, screw the nib that I do like onto a full barrel, because I do like the barrels of these ones. I like the way that the water flows with them. And we'll keep working. So, just cleaning that plate off. That was a crazy start. There's a lot of water there. So I'm moving my paint palette to the side and bringing my plate back now, and I'm going to work on this side with the koi colouring brush pens. So I go through a lot of paper towel, as you can imagine. I have lots of paper towel around the place. And I am thinking that that is probably way too wet. So what I'm going to do is I've just rolled that paper towel up, and I'm going to use the edge of it to suck up some of that water. And you can actually, because that towel's got, paper towel's got ridges on it, you can actually play around and get different effects using those ridges. So I'm going to see how that ends up drying. I can always put some more deeper colour on there at the end if I feel like it. So after that crazy beginning, let's just make sure this brush is clean. It still looks like it's got some green in it to me. I'm going to use the koi colouring brush pens. Now, if you're not familiar with these pens, they are a very small pen in size. The koi colouring brush pen is a water-based dye stuff ink, and it is great for working with a ceramic plate, scribbling onto the plate, diluting the colour and painting with it. It's, you know, really handy way to work. Now I diluted that far too much. So what you can do, if you haven't seen one of my videos before, that's undiluted, and now I'm dropping the colour into that wet area, and it's all going to blend and bleed and go all sort of watercolory. It's a real technical term, isn't it? So in the middle of that, I think it might be nice to pop a bit of yellow in there, and that yellow can mix and blend with the red as well. And it's going to be a very orangey red. It's not going to be a deep red, but that's okay because it goes with what I've got going on over there. The other thing you can do with them, of course, is to work directly onto the paper as a pen. And I like to use it, it's got a brush nib, so I like to use it in sweeping lines that I try not to overlap too much, because you will get some streaking if you overlap it. But I try to sort of do it in one pass if I can. And then I let it dry, and if it still looks blotchy or streaky when it's dry, you can come back and put another layer of it over the top again. So you can work with these pens in several ways, and you get very different looks. If you use it very much like a watercolour, you're going to get those really loose, washy, bleeding, blending watercolour effects. If you use it as a marker like this, it's going to be a very saturated, solid look. Depending on your paper, you can work directly onto the paper with the pen and then dilute it on the paper. However, I have found that it doesn't dilute to the same effect as what this here does. And depending on the picture, it will depend on what method best suits the look that you want to achieve. But I find them quite a useful, versatile pen to have. They're not in the budget price range here in Australia. I can't speak for other countries because I haven't done any research. But here in Australia, they are a more expensive pen. They do give a very nice effect though. So if it's in your budget to try them, I recommend you having a go because they are very nice. And if you don't want to commit to spending too much money in one go, you can look out for these little curated colour sets. This one's called Sunset, and they have some nice colour ranges. For example, this one here is the grey set with 3 cool, 3 warm grey. This one was the one that I won. It's called Pastel. So if you just want to try them without a huge outlay, they do come in those small sets of 6 that are curated. And here in Australia, I have seen them in Officeworks. This is where I bought these ones, was in Officeworks. And I have seen them on Amazon Australia. So I'm guessing other, pardon me, art stores and other online sort of craft suppliers and so on will probably stock them. It probably just needs to have a Google search and see what you can come up with. So I'll use the traditional red, given that she's the Queen of Hearts. I just, I can't really see it in anything but reds, and with the colours that I've worked in here with the red, the yellow and the green, where the red and the yellow are merging, it's sort of more orangey. I'm thinking that that's the colour palette that I'd like to go for. So these pens are nice because the brush pens give you a nice sweeping motion if you want to use them by pressing down a little bit, having a bit of pressure on that nib. You can do quite a wide band of colour. Or if you use a very light touch, you can just use the tip and do some fine work. So between wetting them and diluting them on the plate with the brush, like I did in the heart there, and then using them this way, you can get some really nice effects with it. So again, I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that colour off the plate. This time I'm not going to wet the paper first. I'm just going to use that diluted colour. Directly onto dry paper. So I hope that this video finds you all well. I have gone a bit missing in action off of YouTube. I'm just going to check and see whether this is the same colour here. This one is vermilion and the one in my hand is red, so I'm going to try the vermilion. Yeah, I've sort of gone missing a little bit off of YouTube, I'm sorry, because life circumstances between having surgery last week and having some days where my son was working at home, so the house wasn't quiet for recording, and also I didn't want to interrupt his business dealings that he was doing working from home. So that made it a bit hard to record as well. And I'm trying to get some content filmed for you now because I'm actually going to have stage 2 of the procedure is actually going to go ahead. So I'm having a little bit more surgery on Tuesday coming, and that will put me out of action for a couple of days again, probably because of the anaesthetic. The anaesthetic did bother me didn't bother me, but I certainly wasn't thinking straight, and I didn't feel like my mouth and my brain were very well coordinated. So I thought that I would get a little bit of content filmed for you, or attempt to anyway. I'm just going to use, now I'm going to dilute that a little bit again, and I'm going to use it on the dry paper down here. So I hope it finds you well. I'm recovering okay from the procedure that I had last week. Subsequent follow-up with the doctor yesterday was a little bit, not disappointing, but the results weren't exactly what we were hoping. However, the doctor feels like there's sufficient benefit and response to the first procedure that we're going to go ahead and have the second stage done now. And that will all happen on Tuesday. We've also had a week or so, maybe a little bit more, yeah, about a week or so now since we saw the dog trainer who specialises in dog behaviour, who came out and assessed Hamish for us. If you're not familiar, if this is your first time watching me, I adopted a rescue dog in the end of May, and he's very fearful. He's got a lot of issues with being anxious and scared. And so this lady came out and assessed him for us. Her words are, he's an extremely scared dog and he looks like an extremely damaged dog. So we're never going to know his history because he ended up in the animal rescue as a stray. And they obviously have no history on him either. So we can only guess at what's happened, and this lady's take is that we don't really need to know what happened because how we proceed now from this point forward is pretty much going to be the same regardless of whatever it is that has made him as nervous as he is. And she suggested that we don't walk him for the foreseeable future until we see an improvement in him, and we will also have some more sessions with her. We need to speak to the vet. We have a mobile vet coming on Monday and speak to him about potential changes to Hamish's medication that he's on. And when we start to see an improvement, that he's not so fearful, then we can start to do more desensitising and basic training and that sort of thing once he's got into a bit more of an even keel with his nerves. And when he's showing that he's not so frightened all the time, that will be the time that we can move forward. So hopefully, excuse me, hopefully that won't be too long, but he's quite a big dog. So, to me it seems a bit counterintuitive to not be able to do a lot of exercise with him. And she has given us some games and things to do with him around the garden and in the house. So it does seem a little bit counterintuitive, but I also do understand what she's saying about we have to take away all of the potential stresses that has been making him nervous, get him back to sort of an even sort of keel, and then we start to reintroduce the stresses again in a much more controlled and thoughtful manner, to help desensitize him to the things that are obviously bothering him. So it's going to be a long process. The last week has been a little bit trying. We have felt like some days we feel like progress has gone a little bit backwards. I'm actually going to introduce some fuchsia to this. No, iris this one's called, sorry. So we kind of feel like we've gone a little bit backwards in some respects. His behaviour has been a little bit worrying with regards to people coming to the house and him growling and starting to show his displeasure. He was obviously shut down so much when we first got him that he was not showing any aspects of his personality at all because he was so shut down, and we realised that. But of course now he is starting to show some of his personality because he's feeling a little bit more confident in us and you know, showing a little bit more reactivity. So we have to be quite careful in how we manage all of that, because what he's doing is normal behaviour, but we have to manage how we discipline him, and we have to be careful about, you know, how we do that. And so showing our displeasure has to be done in a way that we don't set him backwards into feeling fear again. So that same colour now, I'm going to dilute it and use it diluted in other areas. And the reason I'm doing that is that when you use it directly onto the paper there, you can see how vibrant and strong and saturated that is. And by diluting it, it almost gives me like another marker in a lighter shade of that same colour. It just gives me that little bit more options. And I think, you know, at the end when it dries, I can decide whether I want to bring in embellishments, you know, with sparkle pens or metallic pens, glaze pens, coloured pencil. You know, all those things can come in to enhance colours at the end if I feel like it needs it. So this paper copes quite well with water. I'm just going to have a little look and see carefully if we can. At this stage it hasn't bled through. It will wrinkle and buckle, which is, you know, completely understandable given that it's not watercolour paper. And I'm using quite a lot of water on there, so it will do that, but I find that to be quite acceptable, and the colours are looking really nice on this paper. These pens work nice on this paper too. It's quite smooth. It doesn't seem to have a lot of tooth to it, and by tooth I mean texture. If we were to look at the surface of the paper under a microscope, it would look like teeth. You know, there's valleys and mountains and valleys. It's up and down, and so that's where the term tooth comes from. And it just basically means texture. So I'm really liking this iris, this colour. I particularly like. So I think what I might do with that is I'm going to use it again a little bit on the plate, diluted, and I'm going to use it on her headpiece here as well. So I think at this stage what I might try to do is keep her in all pinks and reds, pink, red and orange, or versions of, And I'm going to use the green, red, yellow and so on in the flowers in the background here. I think I'll keep all the green off of her. Yeah, I think that might be nice. I might bring in some metallics and different sort of gel pens for embellishments as well. I really do like this colour. It's funny how with different sets of supplies, there's usually like one colour that you really like. Well, I find that anyway. And it's not always the same colour. Like in Derwent Inktense, I love that orangey colour. And in this set, I think it's this colour, I really like it. And I've just noticed that I've missed a little bit there. So I'd like to say thank you to all of you who have been sending your well wishes for my own recovery, but also for Hamish. It is much appreciated. I do enjoy hearing your stories. It is nice to know when you've got a dog that's like this, you know, that not all dogs are going to be those Instagram viral dogs that are skateboarding, hang gliding, you know, jogging down mountain trails with their owners, going on adventures and, you know, so on. Those sorts of videos go viral. However, not all dogs are like that. And we did want a dog that was going to be very active and be able to come away on holiday with us, and we want to go for long walks with him, and we're really hoping that we can get somewhere near that. It does concern me a little bit that we might never be able to do that with him, because that really was one of our main motivators for getting a dog, is that we wanted a dog to do that with. However, the trainer did say something that really resonated with me, and that is that the dog tells you what they're able to do. And if you watch the signs and the body language and start to understand them and be able to read those signs better, they're giving us feedback all the time about what makes them comfortable and what doesn't. And unfortunately, when we went to the animal rescue to get him, we didn't see a lot of that because he was so shut down. And, you know, he wasn't capable of showing us a lot of that stuff. And so, you know, it's on us a little bit that we didn't see just how bad he was. But it's still difficult to come to terms with that. So people sharing their stories of dogs, you know, that they love dearly, but these dogs just never really leave the house. You know, they're not the dogs that they take on all these adventures and so on. It's still nice to know that you can have an animal that's part of your family, even when they don't quite meet, you know, those expectations that you may have had. So thank you for sharing those with me if you have. I do appreciate it a lot. I appreciate all of your feedback. Everyone has been so kind and really generous with their time, watching the videos, giving me comments, giving me feedback, and letting me know what it is that you're enjoying watching and that they're helping you. And that's really, really appreciated a lot. I really can't tell you